Good morning and welcome to BCP Council's Cabinet meeting. Very happy to welcome everybody today. Before we move to the full agenda, please can I invite our Democratic Services Officer to read out the housekeeping. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Please note that this meeting is recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. Please could everyone present follow these ground rules. Only speak when invited to by the Chairman. If accessing via Teams, always turn on your video function when invited to speak and state your name. Please use your microphone when speaking and please mute or turn off your microphones when speaking and please turn off your microphone when not talking. If you are accessing via Teams and would like to speak on an item, please do so by utilising the raise your hand feature in the bar at the top of the Teams window. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the ground floor of the multi-storey car park. Finally, please ensure that background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move into the formal agenda now. For item number 1 is apologies. And do I have any apologies? I believe we've got a full house. Okay, thank you. No apologies received. Item number 2, declarations of interest. I'm not seeing any declarations of interest. Thank you. In item number 3, confirmation of minutes. I've had notified to me, so we've got Councillor Johnson and Councillor Barron weren't included as apologies at the last meeting. They had actually given their apologies and were at the Dorset and Wiltshire Fire Authority meeting. So we'll amend that. Any other issues with regards to item number 3 and confirmation of minutes? So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous.
Sorry,
okay.
Drew, sorry to interrupt. A declaration of interest, please.
Please do. So that's Councillor Hazel-Allen.
Hi. I just wanted to say that we are talking on an item with regards to health and homelessness later. I just want to declare that I work for the NHS within this area of care. Thank you.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I'll just say I've got limited access to Teams, so if anybody would like to is raising their hands, I believe Democratic Services will call them in. Okay, thank you. So that moves us on to agenda item number 4, which is public issues. So please could our Democratic Services Officer Claire advise us of any public issues or questions we've got in this item. Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. There have been no public statements or petitions submitted for this meeting, but we have received a public question from Mrs. Sarah Fisher, a local resident, and that's on agenda item 7, development of the Threep Nature Park. And I believe Mrs. Fisher is present to ask her question.
Thank you very much. So if you could please come and join us, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. And when you're ready.
Is that? Okay. Actually, I'm Ms. Fisher. I'm an unreconstructed 70s woman. So there you go. I'm Sarah Fisher, and I'm a resident of Threep for nearly 70 years, and I'm speaking in a personal capacity, although I happen to be the chair of the parish council as well. And I've got my 100 words here, and it refers to the Threep Sang. At the start of it, planning. The car park is inappropriate development, a very special circumstance, combined with further very special circumstances. That's from the planning. And the transport vector said there is sufficient parking with no overspill parking into nearby streets. However, already there's been 2 planning breaches already have been reported to the LPA. Assuming that BCP and Natural England submit a true 5-year management plan, can BCP assure me, yes or no, that no more maverick attempts to distort the actual spirit or purpose of this consent will be made, including no more car parks in Threep, BCP marketing materials events will reflect Vectors' report for expected upper limit of vehicles and people and scale to achieve but never exceed these limits. And lastly, all wildlife will be appropriately protected.
Well,
100 words.
Thank you very much for delivering that and for attending today. It's appreciated. Can I now call upon Councillor Mark Anderson to respond? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank Ms. Fisher for her question. BCP Council will discharge the planning conditions in advance of work commencing on the Hicks Farm Sang, and will communicate with stakeholders throughout the project and once the Sang opens for public use. BCP Council have no intention to provide any further car parking provision for the Sang and respect the character of the route and do not want to increase traffic unnecessarily. Any information published by BCP Council will reflect this. The wildlife value of the Sang is very important locally and in the context of the climate and ecological emergency. Baseline data has already been captured in advance of any work starting, and ecological monitoring is provided within the proposal for allocation of funds. Significant work will take place to improve biodiversity across the Sang, including protecting the riverbank, planting thousands of trees to recreate hedges and small areas of woodlands, and all will be part of our countryside management across the BCP. And I will give Ms Fisher this copy of the answer.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you for joining us today. Okay, so we would move on to agenda item 5 now, which is recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Board. I thought it would be only right as a effective and urgent item to acknowledge the situation we have facing us in Ukraine at the moment. Positively, we're obviously we've asked to fly the Ukrainian flag, and that's now flying from our civic offices, which is hopefully shows a mark of our support there. So we're very pleased for us to be able to get that set up. We're well aware that there are approximately 10,000 residents in BCP who originate from Ukraine and surrounding countries, and I think this administration's continually made a point that we need to provide an opportunity for everybody to to be active in their communities, and we massively welcome the diverse nature of the communities that make up Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Many of these people are also Russian speaking, including Belarusian, Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian, Moldova. And there's over 7,500 members of the Polish community that make up BCP as well. So we're proud to be a very multicultural, multi-region community. So a lot of people in these communities are actively taking donations to Poland and Ukraine as they have friends and relatives caught up. And I know a number of both people inside this council and across the conurbation have been and will continue to want to show their support. Perhaps I could just take an opportunity for any cabinet members to reflect on some of the work that we are doing, that this council is doing and our communities are doing, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda we have in front of us. Councillor Kelly, can I bring you in first, please? Jane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. I absolutely endorse everything you've just said, and would like to add a couple of things to your statement just now. So we are saluting all the people who are doing so much to take those supplies across to Poland and into Ukraine itself. Those people are volunteering their time, their own money, their lorries, and often putting their safety at risk. So we salute those people, and we're doing everything that we can to help through our Trusted Voices programme and with our community and voluntary sector partners. As a council here, our time will come when we welcome the refugees to Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, at which time all of the arrangements which are currently being put in place and are similar to those provided last summer for our Afghan families. They'll include providing provisions and belongings and also offering health support, literary lessons and social get-togethers. We completely understand that none of those things will compensate for the trauma of seeing your home and neighbourhood destroyed and having to flee, but we'll try to make any Ukrainian people who come here feel welcome and safe. And I think we all want, one of the things we would like to put across to cabinet members and any other members of the public who are watching this, that currently monetary donations are the best way to give. There have been so many donations of food and clothing, but I think that is probably better if people give money now, because the UK government are matching any donations to the Disasters Emergency Commission pound for pound. So that's quite good. And there are other opportunities to donate through the Salvation Army or the Red Cross, who are all out there. They know what's needed, and so that's the best way to help them, I think. And in the next few days, the government will be announcing a new sponsorship scheme to make sure that Ukrainians who've been forced to flee their homes have a route to safety. So the scheme will match people, charities and businesses and community groups to Ukrainians who do not have family ties to the UK. So we will then be able to welcome more of those people to us. So I think the last thing I just want to say is that we want to convey our heartfelt thoughts to those people who are affected by it. We also, if Leader, with your permission, I would like to also mention that we understand that the rising costs of living at the moment and the wider impact of the pandemic means that some residents in BCP are understandably concerned about how they're going to afford their bills. I just wanted to highlight that we have provided funding to Citizens Advice BCP to provide free support and advice to residents on money matters and other things as well. And it's really important to get in touch with Citizens Advice BCP as soon as possible, so that things can you can be helped before things become critical. We've also provided funding to community food settings such as food banks and pantries to ensure that they have the funding that they need to provide support. We are also, really importantly, encouraging anyone who is able to please continue to donate food to food banks when you're shopping, because they're absolutely very much needed at the moment. We continue to provide schools with funding for food vouchers during the school holidays, and arrangements are in place for the forthcoming Easter holidays. So the main message is to continue to contact Citizens Advice BCP. They have a really good website with all of their contact details on, and also details of all of their services. So thank you very much, Leader, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Jane, and really thank you from all of us for the work you're doing in around communities and bringing those together across BCP. I've got Councillor Broadhead, Councillor Nicola Green first, and then Councillor Phil Broadhead. Nicola.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Kelly, for your leadership in this space. But I would like, if I may, just to note the extraordinary warmth and spontaneity of our communities in their extraordinary response and this outpouring of generosity, which I think many of us have seen over the past couple of weeks. There is, I think, occasionally a bit of frustration in not being able to act. Once those donation points and those collections are full, seeing people turned away with their very generous donations is something that we can all reflect on and think, gosh, can we do that little bit more? But I think the really important thing, as Councillor Kelly has pointed out, is that your time will come. So hold that thought, hold that generosity, and do watch out for further notifications from charitable and community organisations, as we've seen that mobilised itself incredibly quickly. And I think that there will be the time, there will be further phases, and as you've pointed out, in the meantime, further financial contributions are being incredibly well directed by both national and international bodies. So there's a part for everyone to play. And I'm just so very, very grateful to everybody within our communities who's really, really put their shoulder to the wheel in this.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Councillor Broadhead, Phil.
Thank you very much, Chair, and really just to echo those points. First of all, this has been a fantastic community effort, and isn't it great? A little bit like we saw through the pandemic, awful time, and yet the communities have stepped up in a way which were we'd hopefully predicted, but have absolutely gone above and beyond. Particularly our really valued Polish community, who we've been working really closely with, who have coordinated a lot of the humanitarian efforts that are ongoing. Councillor Kelly pointed out that we stand ready as an authority and in regular discussion with government about what we can do, particularly if there are people that are unsettled that find themselves on our shore. And I'm sure all cabinet members would agree that we would welcome them with the classic British hospitality, as they would expect if they find themselves in that position, because we are very much all in this together. I do think it's worth pointing out as well that there's a community effort, there's the effort that we can do as a local authority, but there's also the international and national efforts that are ongoing as well. And some of the actions that have been taken over the last few weeks have really gone above and beyond what has ever been done before. We heard only yesterday that the government's commitment to phase out Russian oil and gas, which I think sends a really strong message to President Putin that will really hit the economy hard, and that will be, I think, something that will really make a difference. We've seen that we've got the most severe package of sanctions that Russia has ever seen, which has been facilitated by the international community. The country is providing defence support to Ukraine. We've provided over £400 million in aid already. And of course, as we mentioned, we stand ready to offer sanctuary to any Ukrainians should they find themselves on our shore. We've also seen the Prime Minister lay out his 6-point plan and really taken the lead on this on the international stage. And I think the most welcome thing that I've seen is yesterday the announcement of the International Ukrainian Support Group and the extra £100 million that's been put into that will coordinate the efforts internationally around humanitarian, economic and defensive support. So there's a lot of things that a lot of people can do. We've got duties as a local authority. The community have stepped up in a way which is just absolutely fantastic. And I think it's worth putting on the record that we stand in complete solidarity with the Ukrainian people in this effort.
Thank you very much there as well. I mean, just as bringing this section to a close, I'll just update. I was pleased to be able to sign relatively immediately the Council of European Municipalities and Regions declaration and support of Ukraine and put our BCP Council's name to that. I did that effectively as soon as that was available for us to put our name towards it before waiting for a discussion of the full council, and joined municipal leaders across the continent in doing that. So you know, hopefully there's a very, very strong statement being made. I think before we just move on, it's worth also spending a little bit of time talking about the potential rising cost of living and we touched on it briefly, but the energy and food bills pressure that local residents and everybody will be under. I think as a council we very much understand that. We've put a significant amount of support already into things like funding citizens advice. So I'd draw residents to that service if possible. So Citizens Advice do provide free support and advice for residents on money matters, and so if anybody does feel they're struggling and need support, it's really important to get in touch early, and Citizens Advice BCP are already there and waiting for you. I think we've heard at different cabinet meetings before. We've also put, and our budget has just passed, significant funding into community food settings such as food banks and pantries, community fridges, etc. So the support is out there. We stand as one community, and BCP Council we want to hear from anybody who is struggling or needs any further support. So and again, I'll mention this later when we've got our Facebook Live leadership live session. But Citizens Advice can be contacted on their free phone numbers, and all of their web services are available on citizensadvicebcp.org.uk. So welcome anybody to be directed towards those. Thank you very much, Cabinet colleagues, for allowing us a pause in our agenda to address that. I think that was very worth doing. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is overview and recommendations from overview and scrutiny. It would be in normal practice we've been doing in this is to actually then bring in the chair of overview and scrutiny at the point of the agenda where we take the item. So we will do that again today unless there's any hands being raised, which I'm not seeing. So let's move forward to agenda item 6, which is the LTP capital programme for 22-23. Can I please invite Councillor Mike Green to introduce that for you? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Leader. This will be remarkably familiar to those who've been looking at the local transport plans over the last several years, in that this is a report that comes each year to Council regarding the funding that's coming from government in pursuit of our local transport plan, which in this case is the LTP3, which has been going from 2011 and runs up to 2026. And you'll see if you look at the appendices that it's very much divided into broad brush descriptions of the work that's to be done and the work that's being funded by it, but it doesn't go into any specific schemes or any specific ways of of pursuing our objectives. So it's divided into two blocks, 3.1 million for the integrated transport block of capital and a further 4.8 million for highways maintenance. I'll just take them separately. The capital block, the integrated transport block, is particularly provided to progress the schemes, most of which have been approved by Cabinet, by Council and by the Department of Transport over many years. And in addition to that, there's been quite a lot of policy and strategic changes which have been coming government-led over the last few years towards sustainable transport and active travel. And again, part of this is to do with directing resources accordingly, particularly as we develop what will be the fourth element or the fourth version of the local transport plan to run from 2026. The second section on highways maintenance, I think it's really important to note that this is allocated to us according to the government's requirements, which include ensuring that we are maintaining the network as efficiently as we can. And in particular, this is predicate on us being within the highest band of authorities for our asset management, which pretty much means that that the order that that highways and our highways assets are being maintained and how they're being maintained is pretty much absolutely the mercy of the condition surveys, which are done with very little flexibility. But what that does mean is that we get the highest level of funding at band 3. If we weren't to do so, then that would mean a reduction in funding as we go forward. So very much a regular report, which just gives us the information that we require. And the one change that we will make is there's a recommendation C, which gives myself and the Director of Transportation delegation to be able to change this if the amount that comes through from government is different. Well, in fact, we got that final settlement letter on the 28th of February, so there's no need for that recommendation C. But if I could please move recommendations A and B.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to formally second those. Okay, now we go to members. Sorry, it's actually Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. In the first instance, I believe this was discussed at Overview and Scrutiny. So, Councillor Bartlett, Steve.
Yeah, good morning, Leader. Good morning. We had a long debate and lots of detailed things came out of it, but we have no recommendations for the Cabinet this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bartlett. Okay, so going to other members of Council, I've got Andy Hadley to speak first, and I'll bring in the rest of the Cabinet to discuss. Andy, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just a couple of things on the local transport plan. One is around there's a capital scheme fund down to Wallasdown to Poole Corridor, which was originally funded by the LEP, as described in paragraph 5. It seems now that's being planned to move to the Transforming Cities Fund funding, and that seems a bit curious because the LEP funding was about congestion to the port. The TCF funding is about sustainable transport, and it may just be a technical move, but it just seems a bit odd. So where did the funding go if it wasn't used for the scheme, I suppose, is the question. The second one is around the travel safety measures, and very much welcome the school zones initiative, which is something that I was really keen to start, but Mike's got going, and that's great. And the first 2 schools are now underway. But there's very small sums in. There's nothing sort of specifically apart from one looks like developer led scheme from Durley Car Park, which is a lot of money because the school zones are simple barriers that are put up temporarily at school joining and leaving times. And one of the 2 initial schools is St Michael's, which is very close to Durley Car Park. So I'd really love to see a line in there for other schools, because it seems it's so popular that many other schools are now clamouring to do it. You've got your first tier schools started, and there are lots of others want to do it. And it's a really simple thing that helps with congestion at the school gate, safety for children, and should be a high priority. So I'd be really keen if it's buried in the detail somewhere, and we've got an ambition to make it happen. That's lovely, but it would be nice to spread the money around rather than put it all into the Durley car park scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Andy, and I'll come back to Councillor Green to respond. Mike.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just quickly on the Wallisdown corridor, Wallisdown-Ferndown corridor, I'm not sure that anything's changed on that one. The previous LTP I thought had the same, that it'd been moved into TCF, and I think that actually is a sensible way to be. Because, as Councillor Hadley will know, there is a much greater emphasis onto active travel, and to ensure that the corridors that are involved are integrated and geared that way, I think is a sensible way forward. I don't believe that school streets themselves are actually included within this capital block that we're talking about. There's a total of 888,000 which is there for travel safety measures, of which 490,000 comes out of the LTP. The balance of that being the £290,000, which is due for the Durley car park development for the school zone. But the school zone is much wider in scope and in geography than the school street itself. There is a total through Safer Routes to School of 360,000 that's being put into this, in addition to that 290,000, of which 160,000 is coming out of the. Sorry, it's a total of 200,000, of which 160,000 is coming out of this LTP allocation. So, but that is around the whole of Safer Routes to School rather than those school streets. I would hope that the school streets that we're talking about, which are St Michael's and 3 other schools already around BCP, they are low cost. They are most of the labour that's involved in them, which is the expensive thing, is provided by the schools and by the parents. And so I would hope that as we expand those, and I very much hope that they will prove successful and we will be able to expand them to other schools. But I feel that they should come out of base budget rather than being required to take government funding for. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. That makes perfect sense. Okay, so do any other, now open this up to members of Cabinet. Again, this is, as Mike said, is a technical report we see annually. Is there any other members of Cabinet wish to speak on it? I'm not seeing that, so I will therefore take us to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Okay, so then we go to agenda item 7, which is the development of the Fruit Nature Park, Hicksang. So we've also had a question on that this morning, and I'll look forward to bringing in Councillor Mark Anderson to present that paper. Mark.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd like to make a slight modification to the recommendations. This was discussed at ONS, and I was very happy to bring this in to clarify recommendation 3, which says circa 100k of SIL, and then add the words heathlands mitigation resources per year rising with inflation for 80 years. This ties it in, makes it similar to recommendation 1, which is also the using of the heathlands mitigation fund. I also thought it's probably quite useful to talk about what a SANG is and the fact that it's a site of alternative natural green spaces, and the point of this is that we are trying to protect from the increase in population in these areas, which are, in our case, the acidic heathlands, which house a lot of very rare and endangered species across the south of England. And the more we can do to help protect them, to keep dogs and people off them, the better the heathlands are going to be. In the long term, I'd like to see it in a situation where we don't need to protect these heathlands, but at the moment, that's where we are at. I also thought that in the light of the question from Ms Fisher earlier, that I ought to explain why we have 3 recommendations for the funding. The first one, which is the 580,000, is money that has come directly from heathlands mitigation, which has been discussed with Natural England, and is the money that they agree that we should spend on a sang. And I don't think there are any problems on that. The other 100,000 is money that is works that we think we need to add to the sang to make it better, and a better sang, and improve the area. And if I just quickly say what these are, the first one is we are spending approximately £60,000 to provide electric car charging infrastructure. This is part of our community, our climate change emergency, and is coming in as a planning condition from the SPD. We've got some ecological enhancements which we want to make as an environment team to improve the sang. So this is to monitor wildlife, the otters, voles, bats, reptiles, etc. That's another 18,000. And finally, for the people of Throop, we want to improve enhance the car park entrance, make it more sympathetic to the conservation area status. So we're going to spend £5,000 on timber strands to height barriers, etc., which is going to be about another £5,000. So I hope Cabinet will be agree to support this, and ask you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and so bring in Councillor Broadhead. I believe you're seconded, Phil.
Thank you very much, Chair. Delighted to second this paper. It's great to see that this is, with this paper finally now coming to fruition, and it's also, I think, really interesting to look at the how this has progressed, because as Councillor Anderson has pointed out, this started as a necessity for protecting our vital heathland, so heathland mitigation, but it has, I think, developed into so much more. And there's a reason that we've called this Throop Nature Park, because many people throughout the pandemic have really started to reconnect with nature. We live in quite an urban region. There are 400,000 people in the BCP Council area, 500,000 in the extended area, and yet we have a lot of amazing natural environment around us, a lot of which isn't accessible. And colleagues and residents that have visited some of the other former sangs, such as at Upton Country Park and also at the former Camford Sang, which I think now is also called a country park, tell us that this is a really brilliant way to reconnect with nature, get outside and start to enjoy some of the fabulous and hitherto inaccessible outside space that we've had. And I think the long-term ambition in particular of the connectivity of this with the wider Stour Valley Park makes what we already have as a fantastic area to live, work and play something that could be even better in the future, having all the benefits we have of our more urban environments, but coupled with some of the best outside space in the country. And this investment into that will enable the public to really enjoy that and reconnect with nature. So it is a paper which is a bit bureaucratic about getting the wheels in motion to make it happen. But I think in a couple of years' time, when people are out there enjoying nature, enjoying that riverside location, coupled with all the others that we've got, I think that's when people will really appreciate it. So I'm really looking forward to enjoying Throop Nature Park myself. Thank you, Chair.
As are we all, absolutely, completely agree. Okay, do any other members of Cabinet wish to speak in this item? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So, okay, let's take the vote on the paper as put by the portfolio holder. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that again is unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Okay, so this now moves us on to the agenda item 8, which is this update on establishing a multidisciplinary team and homeless health centre. So what I'm proposing to do, there is some parts of this paper which will be which went through overview and scrutiny in private session. So we will hear from the chair of overview and scrutiny, because I believe their recommendation came through also in private session. So I will when we get to that point, democratic service officers will support us with the wording to go into that. It is our aspiration. We've all seen the full papers, but it's the aspiration of certainly mine that as much of this discussion as possible is held in open public session. So I'll ask members to try and keep that part of the meeting as brief as possible. We'll come as soon as we can back up into public session and have that full debate and discussion in public. Before I do that, we need to put this forward. So I will effectively move a paper that we've seen, and in doing so, bring in our lead member for homelessness, Councillor Hazel Allen, to introduce what we're trying to do here and the journey we've been on so far. So Hazel.
As I stated in full council recently, we are putting people at the heart of policy, and this amazing Health and Housing Front Door Hub initiative represents this. Homelessness is an issue which is extremely important to us, and I'm grateful that I'm supported in the work by the leadership, the Cabinet and this administration, and this clearly does show that we care. In BCP, we are actually at the forefront of work being done around tackling homelessness nationally, and we've been commended for this work, and I think we should be proud of this. We've actually been chosen as one of only 5 trailblazing areas in the country to work closely with central government to try and evaluate what works. All this work was kick-started by the need to respond to the pandemic. Everyone that cares about homelessness in our area and shares our big vision of everyone having a safe place to call home is now working together, talking to each other, and in true partnership, working in collaboration, and this is with local charities and businesses. The Health Hub is a perfect example of this partnership working. This is a true community-driven project, ground-up initiative. This hub is essential to what we're trying to achieve and will not only offer health services, but a safe space for individuals to make change with support around housing, mental health, drug and alcohol, debt. It'll be a joined-up, holistic, multi-agency approach with wraparound support, information and advice, which is exactly what we need to work with individuals with complex multiple needs and addiction issues, which promotes and enables and rewards change. The hub will also have showers, laundry facilities, lockers for belongings, and access to computers. This is also alongside an initiative where we are one of the few areas in the country which are working with health partners as a council to support people when they're admitted to hospital and discharged to prevent multiple admissions through access to better primary care. The hub represents this access. It also represents a front door for care, and it's a focus for all this activity. It will also help the public and residents to know where to direct those in need so that they can get support and help. So why St Stephen's Hall? Location, location, location. It is central to the conurbation. It's in Bournemouth, which is the area where we have the greatest need. The hall is already used to deliver services and healthcare, and there's never been any issues, and that's been for a number of years. It's private, it's sort of tucked away, so it allows anonymity and reduces stigma. We already know that it is valued by individuals who already access services from this area. And also it's known by health professionals that work out of there, and it's the base for the health bus. And it's also supported by the church, who's our nearest partner. If we don't go forward with this as a project, we'll be wasting 2 years of excellent work. We'll be losing a massive amount of community goodwill, and we'll be missing a major opportunity. We'll also be failing those people that we're trying to help, not to mention the time and effort already spent by dedicated council officers. So I really do commend this whole project to Cabinet today. I want to continue to develop services that encourage and reward change, and this project does that. But I also want services that are responsive and flexible, so we can catch people when they fall. Having a hub that can be accessed by any individual struggling with homelessness does this. So it really is very important, because people that are experiencing homelessness need somewhere to go, and this hub enables us to do this. So thank you for listening, and I would really like to commend this to Cabinet that we move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hazel. I appreciate that, and a huge support and dedication you've shown. It's not in just this role for our Cabinet, but also in your professional career as well. So thank you. Could I now come to Councillor Karen Rampton to, I believe you're seconding this, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second, and I'd like to thank Councillor Allen for her commitment and her passion, which absolutely comes across for this project. And it's a project that I absolutely support. It ticks so many boxes across many of our portfolios. And apologies if I repeat what you've already said so eloquently, Councillor Allen, but you're absolutely right. It's going to bring together those multidisciplinary teams and that work focusing on those people who are experiencing homelessness, and it will help them with their mental health, with their substance abuse issues, and it will enable people to be wrapped around with care and support, and enable a better coordination across services. And what we want for people, of course, who are homeless is we want the very best outcomes for them. Ideally, we want them to be in settled accommodation with their own front door. That's what most people aspire to. And so this joined-up approach will be absolutely significant, and it is going to help people on that journey through, which is not an easy journey. But with the resource, with all the work that you've done, in particular, Councillor Allen, to bring together that team, I think it's really going to be a very, very positive outcome for the BCP area, and in particular that cohort of people who so need our help and support. So thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Okay, so now it's on us to hear from the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. As I said, that discussion and the recommendations from it were in private session, so we need to drop to private session to hear that directly from the chair. So if I can ask Claire Johnson, our Democratic Support Officer, to read out the precise wording we need to in order to move to private session as briefly as we can. Claire.
Sorry, the wording that would need to be agreed to is as follows. Under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 in part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm happy to propose that, and I believe Councillor Broadhead is seconding. Is there any debate on that? Just to be really clear, I'm intending that we limit the discussion below the line as little as possible, and come as soon as we can back above the line. I don't believe that should take us more than about 5 minutes, unless people want to debate for longer. So, all those any comment on that? No. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. So, to any of those watching, we will hopefully be back in the region of 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your patience, anybody that is watching online. We briefly moved below the line to hear the feedback from the overview and scrutiny meeting that was held below the line. So we did that as quickly as possible. We've effectively had a there was a detailed debate over the scrutiny about the right way forward and some of the concerns and opportunities, and we can reflect that in our discussion now, as long as we're mindful not to talk about any of the items that are in the confidential paper. So now it moves on us to take any questions from any other non-cabinet members of council, and there are nobody else from council is wishing to speak on this item. So I will move to cabinet to come in. Sorry, Councillor Dove, I didn't hear you. Yeah, okay, great. And the first member of cabinet I'll bring in is Councillor Bobby Duff. Bobby.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to speak, Leader. I've been researching this paper, including the history, and I went right back to the Equalities Impact Assessment, which really looks at why we are doing this and why we are trying to attempt to deliver this scheme. And the most important part of that really sang to me was that this strategy will improve links between services, increase knowledge and experience of working with other services in the aim to prevent homelessness, and more importantly, end those repeat cases of homelessness and rough sleeping. There will be benefits to people, staff, services and our wider community, bringing value for money from the reduction of this homelessness cycle and a better experience for everyone involved as it becomes more integrated. Leaders, surely this is something that we all want to achieve and ensure that we look after the most vulnerable in our society, and with that ensure that services are delivered in a way which is considerate, compassionate and mindful of the complexities around this whole issue. This scheme provides the means to engage in an environment which is already known and familiar to those who are on the street, and provides a way of engaging and hopefully bringing about the aims that we're trying to achieve in mainly preventing homelessness and that repeat case of homelessness and that cycle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bobby. I see Councillor Bartlett has raised his hand. Steve, I believe we'd had our discussion below the line. I will bring you back in now, but obviously just need to be mindful that we don't go into anything that was discussed at overview and scrutiny below the line. Steve.
That's interesting. We do actually have a recommendation that was made below the line at the time, but that was done effectively to protect commercial considerations. Which is
my understanding, Stephen, I have taken advice from the legal team earlier on today, is that where that was conducted below the line, including recommendation, we're not able to discuss that now, which is why we dropped below the line. So if you have anything that above the line, I'm trying to be as flexible as possible, but there was an opportunity to then come back and had made that recommendation above the line potentially. So other than that, I'm going to call in other cabinet members to speak. Steve, anything else you want to say?
The only thing is I don't, given the recommendation you've now come up with, it negates the reason that we went for under the line on the overview and scrutiny board, and the recommendation we made that I would like to read out to you, it's no longer a commercial consideration, and therefore it remains valid, and one that could be disclosed publicly, in my view.
No, I'm. Thank you very much for that advice, but I'm happy effectively. So just to be absolutely clear, we've had the recommendations from overview and scrutiny. Cabinet has heard that. We've also had opportunity to have a full discussion, debate from overview and scrutiny. Now we move to cabinet to have an opportunity to discuss that. Any recommendations might well be forthcoming. We have no recommendations on the table so far, so I'll welcome the cabinet debate. Now. Thank you. Do any members of cabinet wish to? We started with Councillor Dove. Wish to speak now. I will start or continue effectively. I think I have just said it, but I do very much welcome the debate we've had at overview and scrutiny. And also I think Councillor Allen has talked in some detail about the element of partnership working that we've already we've already got here, and also the fact that that partnership working is actually at the Health Hub in St Stephen's now. So the work is taking place out of that building. It's also at the heart of Bournemouth, right in the town centre. So is a perfect location to proceed with. We've, as an administration, been fundamentally clear right from the start. An original lead member of homelessness we brought in our first cabinet. We take homelessness extremely seriously. We want to have a much fuller solution than any of the preceding authorities have been able to deliver before. So we want to go further. So it's very much my view that the physical location, plus the opportunity to have outreach work from it is a fundamental part of this. So there are other options. There are other buildings. Is there another building we could use right in the heart of Bournemouth? No. This is where the community are already using it. This is where health partners in particular are already using it. So I believe the St Stephen's Hub is a perfect part and place for us to do it. And I just want to underline, this is about what we're trying to do here is to work out a solution for us to go further. So that whole physical building plus is an ambitious solution. That's what we're doing. Going back to the overview and scrutiny debate, and also the paper, the confidential paper, we saw a number of options, and I think there were some very real value for money concerns. So effectively we've had before us a potential increased refurbishment valuation has come forward if we take this forward as a council-led project. So I personally believe at that level, it wouldn't, as much as we want to do this, it is significant and wouldn't display value for money. So one of the options in the paper that was put before us was to look at other ways of delivering a service, and talked about potentially community interest company or any other sort of external operator to do that. So it's my belief that it's quite clear from the paper that using another operator outside of a council, particularly if it is a community interest company or a charity, to deliver this force, where we could acquire the health hub and then deliver it at a peppercorn rent to an external operator to deliver, would deliver best value for money. And I think the report we've in confidential is really quite clear on that. And two, it would be the best use of partnership working, because if either a team of the current partners we're working with or any future any external body who is has good credibility in this sector would like to deliver this for us, then I believe that is potentially the best value for money, and also to deliver partnership working. So I would be very happy to see a recommendation come forward that embodied some of that thinking, and are happy to make one, but also look to the rest of the discussion from cabinet before we do that. Any other members wishing to speak? Karen, do you want to yeah, so Karen Rampton.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and yeah, absolutely agree with what you've just said. It's always been, I've said it many times, you get more bang for your buck in the third sector, and I'm just really concerned that we lose the opportunity to provide this vital service. So I would not want to see any further delay. I would like to go forward. I'm delighted that the principle of the Health Hub is supported by Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I understand that was unanimous, so that's great. We all want the same thing. So, Chair, if I may, I'd like to propose a replacement recommendation, and if I can read it out now.
Please read it out now, and then we'll circulate it to Democratic. Thank you.
Thank you. So the recommendations are in 3 parts. A, it's recommended that Cabinet delegates authority to the Chief Operating Officer in consultation with the portfolio holder for People and Homes and the Chair of the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee to implement a competitive selection process to appoint an operator of a health hub service from St Stephen's Church Hall, provided that recommendations B and C below are also approved by Cabinet. B is conditional upon the appointment of an operator. as set out in recommendation A above, approves the acquisition of the St Stephen's Church Hall and delegates authority to the Corporate Property Officer function, retained by the Chief Executive for the purpose of this acquisition, the Section 151 Officer and the Monitoring Officer to agree the specific terms of the acquisition of St Stephen's Church Hall. And C, conditional upon the approval of both recommendations A and B above, approves an increase in the capital budget for the purpose and refurbishment of the property for the purposes of delivering a health hub service to a maximum sum of £800,000. And I believe I have a seconder, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. And I will move to Councillor Broadhead, who I believe you have just indicated your second.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. More than happy to support the change in recommendation, which I think does exactly what we're supposed to do, which is reflect the situation that we're in, try to make it work, and in particular, look at the real value that's been added by the Overview and Scrutiny Board, who spent a considerable amount of time talking about this. As Councillor Rampton has pointed out, we're very accepting of the principle. Had a few concerns around making sure that process was as robust as possible as we move to the delivery stage, and I think each one of these recommendations addresses that and takes us really positively forward in a way that, you know, hopefully we can then find a solution that works, and if not, Chair, that does not proceed. But, you know, obviously that's not our intention here. So, you know, to look in detail, that first revised recommendation makes the process solid. It delegates that authority to the Chief Operating Officer in consultation with both Councillor Rampton as a portfolio holder, and I think crucially the Chair of Overview, the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee as well. That extra pair of eyes I think is always welcome. And then, you know, also to do that competitive selection process to appoint an operator, it's a competitive selection process so that finds the best solution, it finds the best operator, and if I may use a word, I think that outcome of that then should be inarguable. The second one is to approve, as we've discussed, the acquisition of that St Stephen's Church Hall. We've identified, as Councillor Allen has put forward, that a tremendous amount of work has gone on to finding not just the best building, but the best location as well. And we know that there is the greatest need and a selection of these vulnerable people in that area. And we've also found, and I'm by no means an expert in this area, and Councillor Allen and the officers you know, have worked on this a lot harder, but we found in the past, if you don't bring the services to the people, they won't necessarily go to where the services are provided. So this is us stepping up to the plate and providing those services where they need to be delivered. And again, you know, within that recommendation, giving the added comfort of the process that can only happen if the officers agree on those terms as well. And then finally, that final recommendation, which, you know, touches upon some of the other concerns that we've shared as Cabinet and Overview and Scrutiny have talked around, which is just making sure that we set an upper limit to this budget. We all know that, you know, if you ask many different surveyors for their estimates, you get a whole host of different ideas about the cost of doing things. But I think we do need to make really clear that not only are we keen to do this, not only are we keen to involve the community to provide this in the best possible way and get the best value for money, but we have that financial prudence written into the recommendations. And so having the cap within there gives a really firm guidance to those that make this final decision that we're committed to this, but we're committed to this at a certain cost. And if I dare say so as well, Chair, I think it also gives that guidance to the community if we do move forward with an operator in a community interest group, that they know the parameters that they're working within as well, which I think is a really helpful guidance. So I do think this revised recommendation fixes a number of the issues that we're facing here. It makes a process inarguable and solid. It specifies that this is a location that we want, and it makes sure that we've got that financial envelope absolutely nailed down so that we know exactly what we're getting into. I'm really confident with the work that's gone in that this will result in a positive outcome, and I think it will make a transformative difference to the people that need these services on the ground.
Thank you very much, and very well said. Do I have any other members of Cabinet wishing to speak on the recommendation? I'm happy to just briefly say that, you know, we completely agree with what's just been said. So, you know, what this does is it sets that delegation, so we can move forward. It also shows our commitment to proceeding with this at the Health Hub. It all in St Stephen's. It also says that the best way to deliver this is, you know, not with the council leading it, but with the an external operator to lead it. And I think that's really clear. We can play as a strong partner to this, but it's about that partnership working and being led, from that external agency is going to be fundamental to really delivering this. So delighted to support the recommendations as put. Before I go to the vote, anybody else wish to speak? I'm not seeing any hands showing. Okay, so the recommendation is put. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous again. So can I again thank Councillor Hayes-Allen for a significant amount of work for years on this project, and also the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny for a detailed discussion that's really helped and built into the recommendation we've just brought forward. Okay, so then that moves us on to, I believe it's item 9, just get my agenda. Yes, item 9, urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution, which I believe there are none, and I'm having that confirmed, which is great, particularly when you just come back from a holiday, so, effectively. So great. So in that case, I'm thank everybody, members of Cabinet and officers for their support, and also any members of the public who have watched online or are catching up to do so. So thank you very much, and look forward to. Oh, sorry, I don't have. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I did have it on my agenda. So agenda item 10 is a forward plan. Do I have any members wishing to comment on it? I'm not seeing that. The latest version of the forward plan has just been published. Okay, so I won't repeat my thanks there, and happy to close the meeting. Cheers.